Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of Signals from Mars. I'm your host, Victor, and joining me today for this episode is Mr. Xander Demos. Xander, how are you, sir? Oh, now I
Doing
can't.
well. Yeah, no, I'm unmuted.
Okay, cool. So I had Xander on the show a little while ago, back in 2013, actually. So
Oh my God. Yeah.
practically yesterday. At,
Yeah.
at that time, you were working with James Rivera. You were working
Huh?
as a solo artist.
Yep.
Now you're back with XDB. Uh,
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about how the band came together?
Yeah, absolutely. So XDB, it's not so much a too much of a, not too much of a mystery on the it stood for the Xander Demas band, for a while. But we're in a place right now where I'm working with people that are really good. They're not like hired guns. You know what I mean? These are all bandmates, it makes a big difference. And so we said, hey, listen, we already put the marketing in for XDB being I'm the XD in XDB, right? I'm Xander Demas and that. But let's just go by XDB moving forward. That way, if people ask, they say, okay, this is the origin of it. It was a solo project. It's almost like I don't want to compare myself to Ingve. I mean, I'm not in the same class. He's amazing, and I'm just a guitar player in my opinion. And he's but Ingve Malmsteen's Rising Force. I mean, like Rising Force was sort of like the band, but it had rotating members in and out. Whoever was, some people were there for a long time, some people were not. We look at this as like a band. This is a band effort, so that's pretty much the origin.
Was that something that you were looking for after working as a solo artist a while back? Did you want to have other people that were going to be giving you input and maybe help with what you were trying to do as a guitarist to kind of push you further as an artist?
Yeah, I guess subconsciously I pretty much was. I mean, I think it's fair to say that because honestly, I could only do so much as a solo artist. Honestly, there's a lot of people like this album that we have coming out called Gods of Aliens. This was when I was going to do a second follow up to Guitarcadia so long ago. I was going to have probably at least 5 or 6 instrumentals on there again. Now I have no interest in even doing that.
Okay.
I do, but I don't. Like, if I was going to do like a solo album that was going to be instrumental stuff, I would just kind of piecemeal them and probably just release them as individuals. Guitarcadia was sort of like my effort because there were songs on there that I written so long ago. There were some songs that I contributed to a couple bands I was in. I said, you know what, I really want to play this. I want to do these tunes. So it was sort of like stuffing all that stuff into one record, And then finally, when it all came down to it, it was like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and on this album, let's make this a true vocal album because we got 5 people that can sing and 3 of us are lead singers. So it makes a big difference.
Okay. So that's something that we'll expect to see is 3 different singers on what you guys are going to release.
Yes. Yeah. I might sing on one. We have a bass player. Her name is Emily Stroop, and she is just ripping bass player, 20 years old and an amazing voice. It really, and our keyboard player, Brendan Callahan, he is 23 and he's just a phenomenal keyboard player. A lot of, and then there's like myself and 2 other guys that are closer to my age. So there's this big generation in between us. Right. Mm-hmm. But what's cool about that is that, those 2, Brendan and Emily, they have like this, they have the benefit of like growing up in the digital age and the YouTube age and all that stuff. So if they had to learn something, I mean, it was free, it was easy to learn. Myself and Rob Kane, which is our lead vocalist, another guitar player, and then Guy Cole, our drummer, we paid our dues the hard way. We were like, this isn't how this song goes. What's going on here? So we did things the old fashioned way. It's a really good synergy or symbionts, if you want to call it that. But yeah, as far as vocals go, we kind of spread it out. Rob and Emily are the primaries, though. They're the primary singers.
Okay. And to date, you guys have released a single called When the Love Is Gone.
Mm-hmm.
What stands out to me about the track is that it's melodic, but at the same time, it's still helping showcase the musicianship of the band. Reading the bio that was sent to me, it was interesting to see the kind of two opposite spectrums being mentioned. One was the band TNT, and the other one was Sabotage.
Yeah, that's right.
So, um, again, is that conscious that you guys were looking to do something like that, or with the five of you, this is just kind of what came together when each one started throwing their, their spices into the recipe?
It's a great question. I mean, it started primarily as one of Rob's songs, really, and then he threw it out to us, and we all started doing our thing with it. And it's so we all contributed, and it was pretty cool, like how it came together. And yeah, there are elements. I mean, I think all of us, have the appreciation for bands like TNT and Sabotage and stuff like that. I mean, I grew up around Sabotage in Clearwater, Florida, throughout the 80s, and knew them pretty well. And of course, knowing them as a much younger player, they shaped my musical upbringing. So they're always going to be like an influence. It's one of those things where, a lot of guitar players my age, they say that they were influenced by, Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads and even Yngwie and, guys like that, in the late 70s, early 80s. And for me, it was, I mean, there's no doubt it was Eddie Van Halen and Chris Oliva were two of my biggest influences. I'd say probably one more bigger than them was actually Brad Gillis, because that's what really made me want to switch from drums back in 1982, because my parents told me I sucked terribly at playing drums. So let's think of a different instrument for you. I was 13, and so we did guitar, and I saw Brad Gillis, on the Speak of the Devil tour, and all the videos, and I'm just like, man, this guy's tone and this guy's playing is just awesome. And I didn't even know who Randy Rhoads was at the time. Had no clue.
Right.
Had no clue that he replaced him because he had passed away. I had no idea. I just liked the tone. And then a Night Ranger video comes on. I'm like, wait a second, is that the same guy? And it was freaking me out. But then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now this is making sense. When there was no internet to say, hey, Google, who's this guy? And
Right.
but anyway, yeah. So my early influence there, like, yeah, Sabotage had a big part of that. And it was, so even in my songwriting, even on some things on Guitarcadia, there was elements of that in there, even though there's some instrumentals. But as I was writing more vocal tunes in the past, like 10 years, I noticed that unavoidable influence.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring up the whole Brad Gillis thing for those that are younger than us.
Yeah.
Before the internet, if you were lucky to catch a blurb in a magazine, 6 months after something happened, you were able to find out that Brad Gillis had gone back to Night Ranger and Randy Rhoads and this and that. I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, I think I found out who Randy Rhoads was when Ozzy released the tribute album, and they started talking about that he had died and this and that. And I'd heard Crazy Train a million times on the radio.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I love that tone.
Yeah.
It was just that, like, even though I'd heard the song, it was seeing it performed live, and like how thick that sound was, like on those videos. And I mean, that's all it took. I mean, those are the videos that I would see like on repeat would be things from Speak of the Devil, and then ultimately things from Van Halen. You're talking about pre-1984, right? Yeah. So they were showing like a lot of the Van Halen concerts where they were doing, Dance the Night Away, Unchained, and So This Is Love, and all that stuff. And you're seeing like this wall of amplifiers and this gigantic drum set. And it's just like, wait a second. Now this, and the spectacle of it was both of those presented the same. You know what I mean? You had your drummer way up here on the riser. You had your bass player and your guitar player on the same side of the stage, singer in the middle. I'm like, okay, this is the formula. I get it now, but I always had the melodic, part of that too, because, one of my favorite players growing up was Tom Schultz as well, and just Boston in general. And to this day, I mean, I just, how do you get that power soaked sound out of the Marshall, without modelers, you know what I mean? Like if you try to do it the old fashioned way, It's going to take a lot of money and a lot of muscle. And at my age, in my mid 50s, I don't want to lift that stuff up to go play a gig.
Right.
I admit it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's and that's without getting into old bass amps or trudging anything anywhere. So,
Yeah, right.
um, you already mentioned that you guys are working on more material for an album.
Mhm.
When The Love Is Gone came out in April,
Yep.
are you spacing the songs out before the album comes out? Are you
We are. Yeah, we actually over the past couple weeks though, surprisingly, we got asked to do like a bunch of shows, and I mean, and some of them were like, not gigantic spectacle or anything like that. Some opening shows and like even an acoustic show and stuff. And we have been spending time like rehearsing, like, well, God, if we got to play for 2 hours, what are we going to play? We never really scaled down our set. So, we wouldn't, we ended up playing like all covers just to make it easy. We have been asked to do it again and stuff like that. So we said, yeah, okay, we'll go ahead and do it. And, but it also means that each week that passes by, we don't get something else done on our record. And like Rob, my singer, we live right near each other where we live in Pittsburgh. And so it's very easy for him and I to get together and do things. And sometimes it's just been chaos and we just can't get together as much as we want. So ultimately, what we end up doing is I might he'll send me a track. I'll pull it into Studio One or whatever. I'll record it or zero track it, send it back if he needs a solo or something like that. Right. So we are doing that and we're making progress. We just have to actually finish about 4 other songs and we can release the album, but we do want to release 2 more songs over like as originals or I mean 2 more songs as cuts, but instead of releasing one, we want to do like a nice 1-2 punch and maybe release them a couple weeks apart. That way there's a lot for people to talk about and then we'll go ahead and release the album because the album's got like a lot of great stuff on it.
Okay. Is there an ETA as to when you guys think the album will be coming out or still?
I'm saying late summer. That the original thing was to try to get it in for summer, like sometime in the summer. So if we get it in late summer, I think we're good because we're going to try and do another big show in Pittsburgh with Red Beach from Whitesnake and Winger, and then bringing some people in from Guy and Rob's other project called Love and Chains. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember if that was the one that's on Frontiers, the Frontiers label that's overseas and stuff like that. And we're going to be shopping ours around too. We have some interest in a local being Ohio, a label out there. But we're just trying to look for some different terms on it. And I think the material will speak for itself because it's, like I said, it's very melodic. It's very, some people would call it poppy, but it's hard to describe it that way. It still has a very heavy edge to it. The solos are melodic, but I mean, I throw the elements of like shred guitar in there and all that kind of stuff. I hate saying that term anymore, but it's still a thing, I guess.
Right. Okay. When we spoke way back when, at that time, you were coming out with a signature model from Esoteric. How has your gear changed since then?
Pretty dramatically. So there's been some big developments with that. Esoteric, I don't think we ever came to terms on anything.
Okay.
So David Thomas McNaught makes my signature model. So it's called the XD, imagine that. It comes in, whatever flavor you want, 6-string, 7-string. If somebody just says, hey, I just want like one of his guitars, the way he plays it, it would be 27 frets, bare knuckle pickups, the hip shot, tremolo system on it. Not a big fan of Floyd Roses, and I haven't been for years just because my fat hands dig into them, so I like a low profile trem. They're really, I mean, it turned out to be like a really cool guitar. And amazingly enough, he sold well over 20, I think almost 30 of them so far.
Okay.
And then recently I have just joined up with Headless USA because I've been a huge Steinberger player for, 30 plus years. And I don't play the headless guitars. That's the irony in the whole thing. I played the only one they ever made with a headstock when they were really trying to get into the what they call the super strat back in the late 80s and early 90s. So if you saw like Brett Garsed from Nelson and a few other players, like even Buckethead, they play like this guitar from Steinberger called the GS. And I have two of those, and I play them like almost every show. So I usually take my signature guitar. I have a 7-string and a 6-string, and then I usually take one of the two Steinbergers I have, and then the other one I usually take is either like over here hanging on my wall is either a Sir or a Anderson, like a super strat, so I can get those tones. So I always bring 3 guitars to every gig. It's kind of weird like that. It's like an OCD thing, and it's funny. But anyway, yeah. So I've just joined forces with Headless USA, who owns the Steinberger. Basically, they don't own the Steinberger brand because that's Gibson. They own the Steinberger intellectual property, or IP, if you want to call it that. So if they go to re-release the GS, I mean, I'll be one of the players for it, which is really cool.
Okay. And as far as taking those 3 guitars out, do you play all 3? Or?
Always. Yeah.
Okay.
If we do a half-hour show, I'm more inclined to basically stick with one. Tomorrow night we're playing like a full hour set, like we're headlining at a place called Jurgles here in Pittsburgh, and I will be playing at least 2 different ones because I want to play my 7-string on 2 songs, and then I'll be playing one of the other 6 strings on the other. So if I start out with a 6 and I switch to the 7, I'll play the other 6 for the rest of the night. It's just it's one of those things where. Whatever fits. I mean, it also depends on what you're gelling with at that time too. Like I've been playing my Steinbergers a lot, so I'll probably start the night with them, or I'll play my signature guitar, and because Dave McNaught, he's so good at what he does. He's the only one of 2 luthiers I've worked with that. When I said I didn't send him a Steinberger, to base the neck on. I just know that anytime I buy a guitar, I always compare it to how those GS guitars play. So because I play differently on those necks. It's weird. They're not wood. They're made out of graphite. So right. If I can really play the way I want to play on those instruments, or on another instrument, then I say, yeah, this guitar is in that same class, is that graphite. Like I have a Brian Moore MC1. It has a Sustainiac I put in it and stuff like that. It's so cool. And it's got that graphite, fingerboard, and it has that feel to it, so I like a lot of those, kind of strange shaped guitars like that. At the same time, I'm a traditionalist where I like a nice double cutaway. So I'm really weird I'm glad my wife never has had to buy a guitar for me. She'd be like, yeah, I'm not doing this.
You mentioned the bare knuckle pickups before.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think I've had 1 or 2 other people mention them over the years to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are they active pickups? Are they passive?
They're passive. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The ones I use are passive. I actually use the it's called a Holy Diver. It's in a bridge, and then the neck pickup is called an Emerald.
Okay.
And I actually have that in my McNaught signature. In my 7 strings, I use EMGs, and in the Steinbergers, I actually have EMGs in there. But I do have one guitar that a local luthier built for me. His name is Mike Caldwell, and I needed a guitar that was going to be in standard tuning all the time. Everything we do is in E flat. Like everything. Mm-hmm. And we even do some things that are like in straight D, which is like, if you see the wall of Ghost stuff, I'm a big Ghost fan over here. And they do everything in straight D and stuff. And it's like, I play through a quad Cortex, and I actually have a setting on there, a transposer that will, transpose up. And I mean, the processor on that thing is incredible. So there's no issue with like, latency and stuff like that, even playing really fast. And I mean, I like that, but at the same time, I do like the organic feel of having a different tune guitar when necessary. So I had Mike build me one that was a little bit shorter scale, and we based it on sort of like the Ernie Ball Luke, and 24 fret though instead of the 22, because I'm just weird like that. Another OCD thing. And then on that guitar, he did the neck actually similar to the Steinberger too. So I mean, it's all, it just has that feel to it. And we used Duncan pickups on that one. We actually went with like traditional hot rails and Duncan distortion, and man, is the thing just screaming. It's just beautiful because if I do a filming gig for somebody and I can't convince them to tune down, at least I'll grab that guitar and say, okay, I've got this. I filled in for a friend of mine's band who has a Heart tribute band, and I already knew how they were. I'm like, yep, they're going to be playing everything in standard, so I'm going to grab that guitar and that's it. But yeah. Anyway, that's how I roll on that. I don't even remember what your first question was.
No, that's I was asking about the bare knuckle pickups, but that makes sense. I was bringing that up more than anything because I've got a few different guitars and they've all got different pickups from DiMarzios to EMGs to trying to think. I've got blackouts in something as well. And it's always an interesting thing to bring up and talk to people about because I don't think a lot of even players, I don't think realize the difference that having different types of pickups can offer you with sounds and different things that
oh yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And I do think it does matter for the instrument.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of great 7-string passive pickups out there, but for some reason, like in the first McNaught signature I ever got, which was the 7-string, I've had the EMG 707 and then the 707 TW in there, which a lot of times people just say that is like a basic pickup. And you know what? It is, but it's always clean. It always distorts right and all that kind of stuff. So I've never had any weird inconsistency problems with it. And ultimately it looks really cool. I hate to say it. It just looks nice on a guitar that's got 27 frets, that's right. What else can you say, And so I think if you have multiple guitars, it does help to actually experiment a little bit.
Yeah.
Duncan's, DiMarzio's, bare knuckles, Jim Wagner. I think I have a guitar that has Wagner pickups in there. I even had some the Fishman guitar player named Greg Koch, Telecaster player. He's frighteningly amazing. And I actually have a set of his that has a little button on there that actually changes to the voicing for like tele pickups and stuff like that. So it's really cool to have that flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. When we first started the interview, I brought up the name James Rivera. You had played with other people in the past as well. Do you still get people like that reaching out to you, wanting to work on different things, or maybe just do solos for, maybe for a song or two here?
Yeah, here and there. Honestly, it doesn't happen as much as it did in the past. I wouldn't mind, someone coming, hey, throw a solo down and stuff. And maybe there's just a bigger pool of people to choose from. Which I can respect that. But it was, I think that I'm so wrapped up in what we're doing. So I don't know if I'd actually have that kind of time. I did. Rob Kane from XTB. He's actually brought up some things for me with a few people. And there was somebody who had like an alternative metal song that, kind of sounded almost like Fear Factory in a way. And then they said, hey, can you have your guy throw a solo down? And I gave him 3. And Rob, he's such a mastermind in the studio that he actually took elements of all 3 solos and put them together, I guess, like almost on the 4, of the beats and stuff. He's like, I like the way you started this one, but this one ended better and all that and stuff. So I guess it's still going on. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. You mentioned that you have a show coming up with XTB. How many shows do you have planned out in the near future?
As of right now, we are we have so it's a great question. Let me preface the answer on that. So XTB, as the way you're interviewing me right now, it's XTB, the original project, like our original music, and that's what we want to play, But we have 2 other elements of the same 5 people. We have one called Vox Acoustic, and that stands for Voices of XTB Acoustic. Okay. Where we strip it all down. We play, with a cajon kit. And I can't play acoustic guitar because I'm just a sissy and I need my electric guitars that have piezos, and I play the electric acoustic sound that way. And we just, all 5 of us sing. So all 5 of us actually, sing, some of those tunes. they're mostly covers, of course. And then we have what we call XTB under the covers. And under the covers is if somebody says, hey, we need a cover band for this thing. Sometimes it's private party. Sometimes it's, at a club where they say, hey, didn't you used to be in this band? And didn't you used to be in this band? I mean, like my drummer was in a couple of Motley Crue tribute bands and stuff like that. And they did really, they played huge shows and stuff. And because tribute bands are still big. Mm-hmm. For us, it's basically like saying, okay, look, we're going to do 3 sets for you. We're going to do 10 songs per set. You're going to hear your standards. You'll hear like an REO Speedwagon. You'll hear a Boston. You'll hear a Journey or song or two. Maybe something more modern like Lit or something like that, right? Maybe a Poison tune just for the hell of it. No backing tracks. I mean, since we have such strong vocals and background vocals, it's we do that very well. And then of course you're gonna have to deal with 1 or 2 of our originals. So that actually gives us a way to hoe ourselves out. So yeah, we definitely have 3 flavors. Tomorrow night is basically just it's original. We're playing a couple cover tunes, but it's our album is called Gods of Aliens, and that we're doing basically 6 tracks off of that, plus 2 songs from Guitar Arcadia, and then 3 cover tunes, which we've selected, just for like a night like tomorrow night, and we have 2 openers and stuff. So it's gonna be fun.
Okay.
Moving on down the road though, like then we have some vacation time. Everyone's got some time coming up. I think we get back to work probably mid-July. We have like 3 shows in July and another 3 in August. And I think that we're trying to put something together for the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite covers to play?
Ooh, man, gonna go down that rabbit hole. I love playing Stone in Love from Journey because I love doing the solos. They're a lot of fun. Cover tunes. Wow. We actually have taken some liberties and done some other crazy cover tunes. Like we've done Rising Force from Mingvei. Mm-hmm. We've done Pull Me Under from Dream Theater, which is a blast to play.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we've like Square Hammer from Ghost is a fun tune to play because a lot of people they dismiss them because they're all, they look all goofy and stuff like that, and that's fine if you think that, but there's no doubt that Square Hammer is a banger of a tune. You know what I mean? It's just really, it kind of fits with all those classics, so
right.
That one's fun to play. I probably would. I mean, I like the challenges. I like some of the ones that have challenges to them. So we'll do Carry On Wayward Son. We got the vocals nailed down. And I mean, we do More Than a Feeling between Rob and Emily and their range. Oh my God! I mean, they get that like effortless, and it's. Wow. I mean, I'm looking at them saying, why aren't we doing a Boston tribute band? Would we clean the house with that? And my only thing is I won't play a Gold Top Les Paul. No, sorry, Tom.
Is there any cover tune that you've brought to the rest of the band that has gotten vetoed?
Not really. That was probably more of a thing back in the day when I was just in cover bands. We had a cover band called Into the Arena, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was arena rock stuff, and the ones that probably they pushed back on were the ones that were our biggest successes live.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. Bad Romance by Lady Gaga.
Okay.
I play. They're like, dude, you're crazy. We're not playing a Lady Gaga song. I said, hear me out. All right. And we just started playing it. I actually sang it. And, I got kind of like a high raspy voice when I sing. So I was able to kind of nail like some of her, inflections and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And we did it. And of course, I did it with, like heavy guitar and stuff like that. And then we all looked at each other like, oh, this is going to kill. And we played it. We ended up playing it like a week or 2 later. And it was one of our best tunes live. And we kept it on rotation. So there were other songs that, that kind of got shot down. I do know that our old bass player, he brought Footloose to us and we all vetoed that one. It's like, dude, I'm not playing Footloose. I'm not playing that song.
Right.
Because I told him I was going to break into an 80s dance in the middle of it. And I said, you don't want to see me doing that dance. And he started cracking up. And then I gave it the college try. We all played it. And our drummer, he just stopped. He stopped halfway through and he pulled his hat down and he's like, no. It's just like stuff like that. So I mean, I try to bring songs that'll work. I think in our acoustic set we were trying to do, I think I did. I pulled up Ed Sheeran, "Thinking About You," or well, no, "Thinking Out Loud,"
Okay.
and easy song to sing. Like I sang through it, but we kind of like left it off of our list because I know they weren't crazy about it. I mean, I do play with like some people that are more rockers and stuff like that,
Mhm.
but we ended up playing like Pink Houses from John Cougar, and
Right.
I mean, I was okay with that. It's kind of to me, it's kind of boring, but I mean, that's okay. I mean, people that were there, they liked it, and that's all that matters, you know. So I'm very flexible like that.
Yeah. Well, it seems like with all the different songs that you're throwing out there, from Ed Sheeran to Lady Gaga and stuff like that,
Oh yeah,
and Dream Theater, I mean, you're pretty open to pretty much doing anything.
pretty much. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, well, there's very little that we won't kind of get into just in case, or there's very little that we won't get into because we do like um between the five of us and the difference in ages and difference in experiences and stuff like that, we have all five unique tastes.
Right.
It's really cool though. Like my singer and I, and we're both huge TNT fans. So
Mhm.
there's things in there that we like. There's elements you'll hear even in the new songs that we have coming out that actually have elements of TNT in there. But mostly, I would say the TNT, probably from Intuition, is probably our favorite.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with that album, like our songs have more of that vibe than maybe like the Knights of the New Thunder, which is like the early stuff. Um, as far as Sabotage, kind of things go, I mean more later leaning almost towards the TSO stuff,
Okay.
is kind of like where I've approached that. They've been timeless though for so long. They're one of those bands that are just completely timeless in my eyes.
So would you be more willing to cover Handful of Rain as opposed to Gutter Ballet?
I'd have to go Gutter Ballet.
Okay.
I love Handful of Rain. Don't get me wrong, but I would want to be able to play that nasty drop D riff. God, I love it. I was playing it the other night, just messing around with it, and I
Okay.
hadn't played it in a long time. And I think I was sitting in my living room, and I had that standard tune guitar I was telling you about, and I drop D'd it, and I was playing along with some stuff, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna grab, go to Sabotage." So I go on YouTube on my TV, and I start playing along with the video. So I'm playing like, Jesus Saves and Gutter Ballet and Believe,
Mhm.
and like a bunch of classic Power of the Night. I mean, that song's just way too much fun, and some of those are actually in Half Step Down. So I usually have both of those guitars like sitting next to me. So if I've got to change that, nobody can ever agree on the on tunings.
Right.
That's the only thing I was really just kind of like a pain in the butt about, like whenever anybody's ever joined our band. I've always said we are in E flat, and I had one bass player. His name was Ben, amazing bass player, but all he did was he tuned his lowest. He had played a 5-string. He tuned his lowest string down a half step, and I said, "What about like if you have to like ride the E?" He's like, "No, I'll just hold it down." I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't sound the same. It doesn't look the same, but I'm not worried about that. But he was so good at it. He was just like, if I was playing an open E, he knew that, he would be like on the F or not the F, but the F on his, like he'd be on the first fret. I'm like, okay, wow, that's crazy. He has no problem with that.
Right.
You know, he had no problem. He never missed a single note live. I'm like, wow, how do you do it? And then he filled in for us a couple years ago when we did a solo show opening for a friend of mine who came in from California. We did a weekend with him, and it was funny because he said at the time, he's like, I'm getting a little bit older. He's like, I'll tune down a half step, because he liked his strings really tight, and he's got these giant, scary hands that
Mhm.
he just, it looked like he was strangling his bass, and it was really cool. I mean, I couldn't pull that off. I like my light string tension and all that stuff. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, Looking forward to the new album. Are you guys looking to just release that digitally? Are you looking to release it in a physical format, CD or vinyl?
Yeah, but like all three, we want to go digital, we want to go CD, and we want to go vinyl. I mean, I know vinyl's made its comeback, and we've been negotiating some deals to get some vinyl pressing. So they're going to be, of course, limited. If we, it also depends on whatever deal we end up striking up with, somebody says, hey, look, we'll give you distribution. You guys can do whatever you want with the physical. I know a lot of those rules have changed, and sometimes I don't understand them. But Rob, our singer, he's got much better handle on that stuff. So I leave it to him. I just stroke the check. That's all.
What would you like to see with the vinyl? Anything specific you're looking at?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be kind of cool to do like, I mean, a lot of what I have, but Scott, I have a couple guitars. Let's see. I've got my Sir, I have my Anderson, I have a Conklin, I have my signature guitar sitting right there, my 7-string. And they all have like, and everybody in my band will completely agree with me on this. I have a green and blue fetish, It's got to be like some form of green and blue or teal or something like that in between. And it'd be really cool to have kind of like a burst, like a kind of like a starburst on the vinyl itself, like that would be like blue and green. And I'm sure everybody if they go to watch this video, they go to watch this interview later on, they're like, of course you had to say that, didn't you? It'd be cool to see that. I mean, it'd also be cool. Like, I mean, what it was like growing up, and when you get that vinyl, you're like looking at every detail, especially like on an Iron Maiden album. Remember that? You're looking at like all the small, like, the details that the artist, had put on there and stuff like that. It was always cool to look at. It just, CD was almost, I mean, I'm like, I got my readers on here, but I'm like, oh my God, I can't see that at all. Right. So I'd like to see like, some cool artwork possibly on that, to make people like want to buy it, just to say, hey, I've got this, and hey, would you guys sign it and all that kind of stuff, So it'd be pretty cool.
Do you have something in mind for the graphic design of the album cover? Have you guys gotten that far?
We have an idea. We have an idea for the cover, or maybe a lead in from the cover to the back of the vinyl itself, or the cover of the record itself. Because we have a promo pic that we really like. We wanted to also do a since it's called Gods of Aliens, we wanted to basically have the same picture, but on the back have it kind of like, cartoonified or AI generated. Not AI generated. I'd like to actually see an artist do it, but where each of us has like a different alien head kind of thing, but in the same exact pose that we're in, kind of,
Oh, okay.
So it just depends. We're kicking some ideas around. I think right now, once we get the music done, we're going to be like, okay, cool. Now let's design an album cover, So yeah. I might put that out there for somebody to do. Like, I'd be happy to, pay them for their time and stuff like that. But I would definitely want it to be, unique,
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Where should people go to keep up with XDB?
So right now, the best place is xdbmusic.com. So we old school website, we do update it as much as we can. You follow us on Instagram and Facebook. So under Facebook, it's just facebook.com/XanderDemusMusic. And then at Xander Demus on Instagram. We are setting up a new XDB profile on Instagram. We ran into an issue with that before. We got locked out for some reason. I don't know what that is, but anyway, we're still kind of old school on the website thing. We would like to be able to embed videos and and do that stuff. Link to YouTube and everything. On YouTube, it's the same thing. It's Xander Demus. We kept all that stuff alive because that's where it was. Like when we talked, even 2013. I was like 12 years ago. So a lot of that stuff is is still the same. We want to get new subscribers, new fans, and stuff like that. This is going to have a better outreach, I think. These next 2 songs that are coming out, I think, are going to be, I would say, a little bit more universal, and okay. they should be pretty easy for people to, if they like this type of music. I think if somebody really had to put, kind of pigeonhole it, say, look, you could say you're unique all day long, but where are you really drawing it from? I mean, are you familiar with a lot of Swedish bands out there?
With the what? I'm sorry?
Swedish bands.
Yeah.
Okay. Heat and Eclipse. Have you heard of those guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We are kind of like, this new album is sort of like Eclipse.
Okay.
Sabotage. Maybe a little bit of Racer X, tiny bit, know, and maybe an element or 2 of Whitesnake.
Okay.
But I'd say like those, those first 2, and then TNT. So they're definitely the melodic sense of it. The high energy guitar, the big vocals. Like Eclipse and Heat have gigantic vocals. In their songs,
Right.
stuff like that. So we have those elements in there. Um, Yet the simplicity of like bands like Ghost. There's nothing from Ghost that's really complex, but we don't have like the early album doom metal sound. We kind of like more from Perkel onward. Like with Rats and Dance Macabre, like those real melodic, poppier tunes and stuff like that.
Right. Gotcha.
A little bit of a pretty big stew of everything, but so it's old and new. It's not just oh, we're we sound like Whitesnake on steroids, or we sound like this band from the 80s. No, we don't sound like them at all. We have a very much of a modern edge. I've embraced like a lot of those modern bands and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, even I think a lot of people talk about Heat and Eclipse, and they just talk about, oh, well, they sound like bands from this era. And if you actually listen to them, sure, they've got elements. Tuning differently, they're playing stuff a little different as well. And I've got followers who are big into both of those bands, and I post videos by them all the time. So
they're great bands, and I mean, my wife and I have seen them on a bunch of the Monsters of Rock cruises and stuff like that. And I mean, they're just so much fun to watch because it's just, I'm not trying to, diss on bands. Like, for example, Kix. We saw them a couple years ago. They're a great band. I mean, they're, classic hard rock from the 80s. And I mean, they still kept it going. I mean, I give them credit for as long, but they finally said, okay, guys, we've had enough. We're done.
Right.
Direct end scene. You know what I mean? And it was just one of those things where it's like, hey, look, age has caught up with them. And the guys in Heat and Eclipse are much younger. They bring another level or another element, and I love it. I mean, I'm glad that that no one's trying to beat the dead horse. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if Kix wants to come back, hey, and I'm just using them as an example. I've seen them live, 4 or 5 times. I think a couple times on those cruises. They always bring the energy. They bring a good show. But ultimately, it does come down to they were around at that time when some of these guys, maybe in Eclipse, weren't even born yet. So it's good to see that I embrace the new, because I do see a lot of stuff on Facebook where people are like ripping those new bands apart. It's like, how can you do that? I mean, don't you want to like keep this going? Because eventually, if you just follow the ones we grew up on, they're going to die out. I hate to say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
we do a monthly new releases show just of that, and I like to call the people that are stuck in '89 lazy listeners, because I think there's good music coming out all the time. I mean,
there is.
I don't think, I'm never looking for something to replace my favorite album or my favorite this or that, but I'm looking to add to the menu. It doesn't mean that you can't add different things to a playlist that are going to accompany, a classic that you've always loved.
Exactly. That's always been my attitude about that. And I stick with it. I mean, I'm very passionate, about that thought, which is why,
right.
I got into bands like Ghost, or I got into Eclipse, and I got into some of the, like even like the heavier ones that were more prominent in the 2000s, like Trivium and Bullet for My Valentine. I mean, I saw both of those bands live, and they put on a great show.
Right.
I mean, they're a little bit more like a more melodic and slick version of like Metallica. Less thrashy, but more flashy. I mean, I guess you could say. But they really did have like a nice heavy edge to them, but they retained that melodic, memorable sound, like that. What was that song from Trivium, "Dying in Your Arms" or whatever?
Right.
Good tune. Great tune. Still to this day, it's if you just start building, like you said, your menu. If your menu started with the Trooper, right, and Aces High, and maybe I don't know, Love Bites or Turbo Lover or something like that, and your menu started there and it just kept expanding. I mean, you'd see Master of Puppets on there, and you might see Rising Force from Yngwie, or you'd see Pull Me Under from Dream Theater, and eventually, as time goes on, you'd see what's it, Tears Don't Fall from Bullet for My Valentine, and so on. You get all these great songs that it's okay to say, hey, I put this tune on, it's from 1982, and hey, I put this song on, it's from 2008 or whatever. I love that. I mean, I love that evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Cool.
Yeah. Xander, it's been a blast talking to you again.
Same here. Same here. Pleasure.
Hopefully it doesn't take another 13 years for us to hook up again.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah. So around the time the album is out, hit me up again and hopefully we can talk about the full album.
Definitely. And you'll get a copy.
Awesome. I appreciate your time, sir.
All right. Thank you, Victor. It's been great talking to you.
All right. See you.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching the Signals from Mars live stream. You can watch the show live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, or check out replays on YouTube. Go to signalsfrommars.com for more information. This concludes our show.